Good afternoon, colleagues. The Committee of the Whole is back from recess. We will now proceed on to Bill 400-400-35 COR, and we have Public Health that was invited. I ask the Sergeant Arms to please swear them in. I remind the other panelists that are participating, which is from OFB, BBMR, and DOA, to be reminded that you're still under oath. Sergeant Arms, if you can please swear the Public Health folks in.
Okay, Mr. Chair, thank you. Mr. Director, can I have you raise your right hand? Okay, under penalties of perjury, do you affirm that any and all information that you provide, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, Arthur San Agustin.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, he is under oath.
Thank you, Sergeant Arms. I'd like to remind my colleagues, we will have 2 rounds of questions for the panel, with each senator allotted 5 minutes for questions, not including responses. After completion of the 2 rounds of questions, panelists will be excused until called upon for the next bill, if required. Amendments to the bill will be discussed after the 2 rounds of questions. Amendments must be submitted in writing to the clerk via email. Amendments not in writing will be called out of order. After we complete the amendments on the bill, the next bill will be introduced by the sponsor, and the panelists will be rejoining the Committee of the Whole. We will now continue this process until all bills are discussed. I now ask the author, Madam Speaker, to please give your opening statement for Bill 400-35, the title, and so forth. Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to my colleagues and to the listening audience in Guam. Bill number 400-35 COR, as amended by the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriations, and Housing, is a bill that was introduced by myself, Tina Rose Munoz Barnes, an act to make appropriations necessary to safeguard the public health of the people of Guam by amending Public Law number 35-99. Mr. Chair, I introduced this bill 400-35 in an effort to give the Department of Public Health and Social Services the resources they need to continue vital services that our community desperately needs. On September 15th, the Public Health Director, Agustin, had stated that due to the cuts outlined in the budget that was passed by this body and now Public Law 35-99, the following services would be cut or may be cut. Adult day care services would be cut by January 1st, 2021 to the end of the fiscal year. Case management services would be cut effective January 1st, 2021 to the end of the fiscal year. In-home services for our Manamco would be cut effective January 1st, 2021 to the end of the fiscal year. Senior citizen services would be cut effective January 1st, 2021 to the end of the fiscal year. Transportation services for seniors would be cut effective January 1st, 2021 to the end of the fiscal year. Home delivered meals on the weekends for our seniors would be cut for the entire fiscal year. 24-hour emergency protective services for our islands vulnerable would be cut effective January 1st, 2021 to the end of the fiscal year. Legal assistance would be cut effective May 1st, 2021 to the end of the fiscal year. Foster care payments would be cut effective January 16th, 2021 to the end of the fiscal year. Both the alley shelters, which provide services for the abused and neglected women and children, will be cut effective January 1st, 2021 to the end of the fiscal year. Our island's only homeless shelter, Guma San Jose, would be discontinued effective January 1st, 2021 to the end of the fiscal year. Mr. Chair, during the public hearing I was grateful to hear that Department of Public Health and Social Service had been able to move resources around to ensure that weekend home delivered meals, which has been slated to be cut effective at the beginning of the fiscal year, have continued, but we cannot keep robbing Peter to pay Paul. And based on the fiscal note presented by BBMR, we had learned that some of the $6 million of the proposed funding of the $11,518,090 had already been appropriated to Department of Public Health and Social Services, but the agency had never received or spent these funds. BBMR has confirmed that this $6 million still remains in the Healthy Futures Fund, and given that the original bill had a set dollar amount and how the sum of $11,518,90 had been appropriated, I heeded the recommendations of BBMR on their fiscal note and worked with you as the oversight chair, Mr. Chair, and also with the Office of Finance and Budgeting Director to have this bill substituted or amended to reflect the recommendations of BBMR to rescind the $6 million previously appointed and untouched. And at the end of the day, it still goes back to public health. If I may, Mr. Chair, I want to just take a little moment to reflect on one of the testimonies presented at the public hearing. We heard from a product of our foster care system, someone who lived at the Alley Shelter and was fortunate enough to have such loving foster parents whom I am sure all of us know personally. This young man was able to get the care every child deserves. He was able to graduate from Father Duenas High School, serve our community as one of the 800 sons and daughters of Guam who was deployed to Afghanistan in 2013, and today he has come home and is an entrepreneur on our island. What really struck me in his statement was when he said, and I quote, "All these programs, all of these things that we have here, they raise me and they raise a lot of other children too." He goes on to share that while he was fortunate to have great foster parents, times were tough. I want to end with another quote from his testimony. "Every Christmas, every summer, you know my parents always made sure that we had the good stuff. You know we are always taken care of. I went to a private school, I went to Father Duenas High School, but you know my dad had to work for that, and sometimes when these payments would get cut before us, we've even seen this to be a scare tactic. I grew up knowing that this was a scare tactic. You know that solution? This is an amazing bill, 400. It is a problem solver, and I'm very happy to read that this bill will be about it. Thank you so much, guys." And that came from one of the constituents who had true life experience. Mr. Chair, I want to say that I have no explanation as to why the $6 million was not given to Department of Public Health and Social Services in the first place, but now we are giving them the $6 million that is rightfully theirs again, but $6 million is still half of the total funds that public health needs and half of what this bill appropriates. I hope we can see past what was done and beyond the realm of this branch of government, and more importantly, be that solution, because our sons and daughters, our elders, and our island's most vulnerable are coming on it. We hear horror stories of children being neglected and abused, women and our elders being neglected and unabused. This is not the catch-all solution. I fully understand that, and that the catch-all solution is to teach the people that enough and respect to. Something that, I want to share with you, Mr. Chair, that something my parents taught me and all our parents taught us, that is one small piece of the puzzle is to address the problem which is on hand. And this bill has been amended by your committee, and in working with BBMR, they've noted that the $6 million was appropriated but not expended in fiscal year 2019, and at the suggestion of BBMR, and I know that Mr. Lester Carlson is here and he can attest to that, Section 4 was added to delete the appropriation in Public Law 35-36, making the 11.5 million whole again. So I want to say to you, Mr. Chair, I know it's brief and short, and I know we're up against time, but thank you for giving me this opportunity to present 400. Thank you for working with me. Thank you for letting me work closely with also BBMR and addressing what the fiscal note has provided for us. And I literally hope that any little resource that we can find in previous budgets or previous audits that are out there, knowing that public health is really the agency who continues to be the front line today. Mr. Chair, I'm hoping that my colleagues will share that same vision and help me support that. Again, any little that they need, they are the front lines. We need to help them. We need to give them the majority of the resources, and I'm hoping that my colleagues can help support this bill. So thank you for the opportunity to make this bill be presented on today's session floor. And I'm hoping that my colleagues will help me in this effort and that the committee of the whole will answer the questions my colleagues have. Senator Masi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My colleagues, we will now begin the 2 rounds of questions that will allow each senator to ask the panelists any questions that relates to the bill. Senator Will Castro, do you have any questions at this time? Not at this time? Senator Jim Moylan, do you have any question at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the author of the bill. Yes, I can see where, of course, any additional monies or monies that was supposed to be given previously should be given to Department of Public Health. But I would like just more information. What happened? You know, the $6 million. I didn't hear that. What happened to that $6 million? If one of our panelists will be able to explain why wasn't that provided as originally projected, Mr. Chairman?
So, Senator, you're asking maybe,
Yes, sir.
you know, just identify who you want to ask. BBMR, maybe you may be able to assist the senator on that question. What happened to the $6 million, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hello again, everybody. The $6 million was loaded last fiscal year. It was appropriated and loaded. I think for clarity purposes, it was always available. And there was a request to draw down a small amount. I think it was in August or September, which prompted a lot of discussion about this fund source. And we were able to ascertain that the entirety of the appropriation, the $6 million, basically was still available. Then we had the audit that provided the opportunity for more resources to be made available. So there was a lot of moving parts that resulted in the introduction of this bill. And I think the intent is you can't get any more focused, any more on point with what's going on. So just to be clear, Senator Moylan, the money was always loaded and it was always available. We're just taking a step back to take a look at the entire fund balance because we had the audit to assist us in being able to identify what is actually a gain to the department by tapping the fund balance of $5.5 million.
Thank you, Nestor or Lester, for the explanation. So to clarify, then the money was there, it wasn't drawn down. So in other words, Department of Public Health didn't spend it, or wasn't asking for it. I'm just wondering, and I'm asking this question, of course we want that money to go there, there's no doubt. But I'm just asking these questions because I'm considering for the next year's budget, are we going to find $6 million someplace again because the department doesn't have any plan to spend the money? Maybe Department of Public Health can explain that to me. They knew the money was there, but they didn't spend it, if that's what I'm understanding correctly.
Senator Moylan, this is Arts and Augustine. So yes, I have both. They haven't been sworn in. Perhaps we can swear them in now. My ASL, Tom Chidagui, and the Chief of the Division of Public Welfare, Taz Carcangel. And Taz oversees the MIP program. And perhaps she and Tommy can provide a response to your question, Senator, but they would need to be sworn in. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, Senators. This is Teresa Archangel. Apparently,
Stand by.
okay.
If I'm correct, Sergeant Arms? Who was sworn in? I know Art was sworn in and Mr. So hold on, we have to swear you in. Mr. Snoxine, if you have any other staff there, you need to let us know first. You don't just allow them to speak. We need to know who they are, so we have them sworn in first. Do you have anybody else other than who was sworn in?
I have Deputy Director Ugin here with me as well.
All right, Sergeant Arms.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I have you raise your right hand, please? Those that need to be sworn in. Okay. Under penalties of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information that you provide, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. State your name and answer the...
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chair, they're all under oath.
Thank you, Sergeant Arms. Thank you. Now we'll continue. Senator, if you can repeat the question again so that we make sure we bring clarity to whatever they're saying. And if the folks can please get as close to your mic so we can understand you, because some of you, it's coming in too muffled. And if you're not in the same room, then take off your mask so we can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the representative from Department of Public Health. Basically, what I'm asking is the $6 million, yes, definitely we want, I would like you to see, get that money. It's most needed. It's the best, it's the department that really needs it, especially now. But I'm wondering if it was there before, and I'm trying to understand, you knew the $6 million was there, but you didn't spend it, or you were expecting to get it, or you had no idea where to spend it at. And that's why there's still that balance there that we're trying to give you again, right now at this current time. And the reason I'm asking is because I'm wondering how is this going to play out for next budget as well, and some concerns, or maybe we have to make some adjustments so we can make sure you get the money and we don't have to go through this again. So please, if you understand my question, appreciate your response. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Is there a response required, Senator Moylan? Okay, Art, can you respond to that? Or one of your staff?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Mr. Archangel, the Chief of Welfare, will respond to the inquiry from Senator Moylan.
Oh, okay. So the funding was loaded and the account was established. We were not able to utilize that because we utilized the FY 2019 money to match the FY 2020. As you know, the FY 2019 was not utilized. The reason being is because the federal medical assistance percentage was increased to 100%. So we have a retro claiming. So as a result of that retro claiming, we utilized the 2019 funding, local funding for 2020. So the 3.668 million and the 6 million from the Healthy Futures Fund, which is 2019 and 2018, was not utilized.
Is that sufficient, Senator Moylan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Senator Tello, do you have any questions to the panelists on Bill 400?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I do. Okay. I'm sorry to sound like I'm repeating this, but I think it's important because even myself, Mr. Chair, I've had to go over this and over this to try and understand where this money really came from. And I would like, if BBMR can tell us, in 2018, supposedly there was money left over in the Healthy Futures Fund, or was there an excess? So my question first is, the money that was appropriated from the Healthy Futures Fund, from the audit in 2018, was there any excess revenue in the Healthy Futures Fund for FY 2018?
I don't have the 18 audit in front of me. We based what we presented in this bill off of the 2019 audit.
Lester, if I'm not mistaken, the 6 million was realized from money that was not utilized in a 2018 audit, correct?
I don't think that's what Tess just said. I think she said that she was using other funds to take care of the obligations so that the body would be assured that public health was in fact doing very good fiscal management
So Tess,
and meeting the obligation.
So Tess, in the FY 2018 audit, it said that there were $6 million, I believe during your testimony during the public hearing, there was about $6 million in this audit, and it was from FY 2018, and then it was placed into the FY 19 budget, and then carried over again in FY 2020. So well, you're not in charge of the excess for 2018, but is that, again, I'm sorry to keep repeating this, but I just want to make it clear that in FY 2018, did you utilize all the funding that was appropriated to public health? Did you use all that funding? Tess?
Yes, all the 2018.
Okay. Then in
Based on
2019,
the public law,
okay,
whatever is appropriated in 2018, it was utilized.
all of it was utilized.
But okay, the 2020 appropriation from 2018, that's different. That's from the Healthy Futures Fund that have not been utilized.
Okay,
I'm
so
talking
that-
about two things here. One, the budget law, and one, the Healthy Futures Fund. The 6 million was appropriated from the Healthy Futures Fund 2018 for the 2020 budget.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at. I mean, whether it's appropriated from the general fund or appropriated from the Healthy Futures Fund, that the money that was appropriated to you in from the Healthy Futures Fund in 2018, the $6 million was not utilized.
Yes, it was
Okay.
not utilized.
So then that money that was appropriated from the Healthy Futures Fund in 2018 was carried over in 2019, or maybe it wasn't even realized. I think everyone just didn't realize the money was still there, or public health did not say, hey, we're supposed to get 6 million, whatever the case may be, because in FY 2020, that funding in not excess, but what was previously appropriated was carried over into 2020. Is that correct, Tess? Tess, was that correct? I'm sorry, you might have been on mute. Yeah.
Tess, can you answer the question?
Sorry, Senator. Can you repeat your question? My phone went,
okay.
sorry.
So in 2019, FY 2019, when the budget was created in 2019, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was not realized that $6 million was not given to public health from the Healthy Futures Fund. But instead in 2020, the FY 2020, in the budget bill that was created, it did utilize that funding. It realized the 6 million and was appropriated then to public health. Is that correct?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
because it's available and because there's a need for local match for the Medicaid program, they appropriated that in FY 2020.
Okay,
Budget.
so it kind of skipped 2019 then, because nothing was,
There-
yeah. Okay, now Lester, I know, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Tess, go ahead.
There's actually 2019 funding that was also appropriated in FY 2020 budget, which is the 3.668 million. So the total is 9.668 million, if I'm not mistaken.
And that money, that 3.6 million was from the Healthy Futures Fund?
Yes, it's both from the Healthy Futures
Okay,
Fund.
so that was
The
additional
6
funding.
and the 3.66.
Okay, so that was additional funding. I wanted to stick with the 6 million to try and trail this 6 million. Now, going into the funding for FY 19, 3.6 million was appropriated, but you did not utilize that from the Healthy Futures Fund, correct? That's what you just said. Okay, so now we're down,
Yes.
and now we're here at 2020, FY 2020 budget, which we incorporated both the of that $6, $7, $8, $9 million that was never utilized in 18 and 19, was that taken and placed in FY 2020 to utilize?
It was appropriated for 2020 to utilize
Okay.
for 2020, but we still
Thank
didn't
you.
use it because all the funding that was appropriated in FY 20, the LAPS funding from FY 2019 was utilized in FY 20.
Okay, and here we are today. Okay. Lester, I asked you if there was any excess revenue in the Healthy Futures Fund for FY 2018. You didn't have that number. Do you happen to know if there was any excess unappropriated revenue from the Healthy Futures Fund for 2019?
Are you asking me, Senator?
Oh, I'm asking Lester, BBMR.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Tess. Thank you so much for answering this question. Lester?
Yeah, we're working off of the audit, the fiscal 19 audit, Senator. So that's where we got the $11 million Healthy Future Fund balance information, which does include, as the speaker mentioned, the $6 million that was previously appropriated.
Or how about the $3.6 million?
Senator Tello, your 5 minutes is up.
Oh, okay. Well,
You'll get it on the second round, okay?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll yield my time till the next.
All right. Senator Louise, do you have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I thank the previous speaker for taking us through the timeline, because it's really important that we understand where it's coming from and where it's going to go to. Mr. Chair, I fully support giving funds to the Department of Public Health and Social Services, especially during the coronavirus pandemic, but I do have some concerns about the language in this bill. So when we appropriate money from the Healthy Futures Fund each year, we assume that there are going to be, for example, $41 million in revenue, and we come up with $41 million in appropriations. Appropriations for Department of Public Health and Social Services, for Medicaid match, and for the Guam Cancer Trust Fund. I'm sure it's no surprise that I'm bringing that up. We have only one Healthy Futures Fund. We don't have a different Healthy Futures Fund for each fiscal year. So when fiscal year 2019 closed at 5 p.m. on September 30, 2019, that balance at that time became the balance of the Healthy Futures Fund at 8 a.m. October 1, 2020, on the first day of the fiscal year 2020. Now, if we add the fiscal year 2020 Healthy Future Fund revenue to the October 1, 2020 balance, minus the total FY 2020 Healthy Future Fund appropriations revenue, are you following me, Mr. Chair? We should get the FY 2020 balance. Now, Mr. Chair, Section 19 of Chapter 3, Part 2 in Public Law 35-99, the FY 2021 annual budget appropriates 85% of the FY 2020 balance to the Department of Public Health and Social Services, and then 15% to the Guam Cancer Trust Fund. Therefore, if this bill is enacted as it's written, it could and more than likely will wipe out the entire 15% of the Healthy Futures funds to the Guam Cancer Trust Fund. It could likely, as written. So I guess my question would be, Mr. Chair, this bill kind of goes back in time and gives the Department of Public Health, it seems like it's giving the Department of Public Health and Social Services 100% of the FY 2019 Healthy Future Fund balance. So I guess if I was to word this into a question, what happens to the money appropriated in Public Law 3599, Section 19, Chapter 3, Part 2? What happens to that money? Does it all go to Department of Public Health and Social Services and then nothing left for the Guam Cancer Trust Fund? I don't know, maybe that could be a question for Lester or for
Or OFB?
OFB.
Maybe Steve should answer that.
Senator Munya?
Yes, Lester.
Senator, yeah, so we haven't done the audit for fiscal year 2020, so we don't know what the Healthy Future Fund balance is. Section 19 does act proactively in being able to say that whatever it is that's available when the audit comes out, it's split 85-15. But we're talking about the FY19 audit information that has $11.5 million as the fund balance when the audit was published. And I do have to make one slight correction. When we end the fiscal year, we don't close out the fiscal year for several months because we have transactions, vendor payables. So the balance at 5 o'clock on September 30th is not necessarily what you would say is available at 8 a.m. October 1st, simply because you have to close out the fiscal year and appropriately address encumbrances on the fund, be it vendor payables, personnel costs, whatever it is that's authorized per fund. So that's why we wait until the audit comes out, because we know that we've cleared the books, all the outstanding entries that have to be made into the system to allow for the auditors to then do their job is something that we're in the process of doing now for last fiscal year. So what we're talking about here isn't something that we know, because we don't know what the fund balance for fiscal year 2020 is, because we haven't done the audit yet. So if we could, stick with what it is that we're presented with, we know we have $11.5 million based upon the audit results for fiscal 19. And we know that the $6 million is part of that. And we know that the $6 million is still intact.
Thank you, Lester, for that clarification. So at this point, so we're not discussing FY 2020 budget at all. I guess what I'm concerned about is that it always seems that the previous years is what affects the current year and then the future years, and it always seems like we got to backtrack and figure out how we're going to cover the shortfalls of, say, for example, the Medicaid matching funds. It always seems like we're resorting back to what is excess from the previous Healthy Future Fund years. And I guess my concern really is that, will the Guam Cancer Trust Fund be out of luck after all is said and done? And unfortunately, I'm not going to be here again next budget year to maybe put my fist down and say, can we just give the Guam Cancer Trust Fund what it deserves? At this point, the Healthy Futures Fund is now become a rescue fund for everything else. And so maybe my concern is that, will the Guam Cancer Trust Fund be out of luck again in the next fiscal year or this fiscal year? Thank you,
You,
Mr.
you
Chair.
recall that the Guam Cancer Trust Fund received $1 million appropriation this year, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. $1 million, which is just a very small percentage of the 15% that they're supposed to get.
Okay, because if it was $10 million, 15% would be $1.5 million. But I just want to make it clear that the Guam Cancer Trust Fund, the budget that was passed by the legislature and then vetoed by the governor and overridden, does have $1 million for the Guam Cancer Trust Fund. Just a point of information, ma'am. That's all.
Is that it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll save the rest of my questions for the next round.
All right. Senator Jose Pido, do you have any questions, sir? No questions. Senator Amanda, no questions. Senator Paris, do you have any questions, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this question is for Tess from Department of Public Health. So I guess in creating the budget, what was the original request for the Medicaid matching? If you can recount that. I don't know if she heard me.
For fiscal year 2021, Senator?
I'm sorry, did you hear? Can you repeat that, please?
For fiscal year 2021?
Yes. What was the original request?
I guess Tommy, can you respond to that? Because it will
Yes.
change.
What was
Okay.
originally requested for local match, specifically for the Medicaid program, was $20,591,818.
Okay. And then considering that the federal government provided 100%, so I guess has there been a revised, basically what I'm trying to get at is what is the need for matching currently? That question could be for anybody in
Okay.
the Department of Public Health.
Okay, we were given a budget ceiling. That's why the request is 20 million. But if we're going to match all the federal funding, then that will not be enough.
Okay, so just wanted to assess what the current needs are for matching.
Yeah. We, based on our trend, based on the expenditure, we would need roughly 125 to 128 million. Well, the expenditure, we really cannot assess how much it will cost because one patient can be 2 million, one patient can be 1 million. Depends, we can only project. But when we do project, we base it on the last fiscal year's funding. So our total expenditure actually for all, we're projecting 163 million total computable.
But currently, so you think 28 million is your needs? Is that correct?
20 million.
20 million.
No. 20 million is not. That's the budget ceiling.
Okay. Right.
Did that answer the question, Senator Burris?
Yes, it did.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Senator Torres.
No, I don't have any questions. I'm just glad to know that there is that balance in the Healthy Futures funds that can go into the operations for public health for those critical programs and services that are currently lacking. So,
All right. Senator Lee, you have any questions, ma'am?
Suzuis Masi, Mr. Chair, and Hafide colleagues and those joining us over Zoom. I did want to just ask a question of our DPHSS representatives. I know that, I'm really grateful that we're discussing this bill and we have this opportunity to discuss additional resources for the Department of Health and Human Services at a time in the middle of a pandemic and all of the things that we're experiencing as an island community. And I know that DPHSS cited a $10.492 million shortfall for FY 2021. And this bill, Bill 400, will appropriate $11.51 million. And they provided a breakdown for the shortfall, but I just wanted for the folks at DPHSS to give us an idea of what the remaining $1.026 million will be used for.
Art, do you have
Senator
something?
Lee? Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Lee, actually let me give you a little history. So I'll share a little history of what we went through as a department. We were actually short at the beginning of FY 2021 budget, ma'am, 14 million. So we made internal adjustments to the tune of almost 4 million, 3.9. So yes, there appears to be a little over $1 million, Senator, that is above what is presented here, the 10.4. We're looking to use those funds to restore some of the cuts that were made. Those cuts were made in either operations. Inside there's a car passing, ma'am, I just want to be sure you can hear me. Were cuts made in operations and personnel. So we would restore some of the funding there. We really heavily maximized on our program income with Community Health Center. And we even looked at moving people to federally funded positions. Of course, that all translates to the impact on services, but the additional funds will be used within the department just to restore some of the funds that were, our services and program funds that were cut to come down to 10.4. We started a 14.4 needing to cut the department internally through the various divisions, the leads of each division. We met and they cut 3.9. That came down to 10.4. And basically we scrubbed hard and deep and we unfunded positions that we needed. Even our lab right now, we're needing to build its capacity, especially amid the COVID-19 situation, our pandemic. But even that, we're really trying to find money, but also using our federal funds as much as we can to maximize what we have. But the 1+ million, ma'am, Senator, will be used to restore some of the planned cuts for public health in 2021 and public health and social services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director. And I just want to reiterate, that's one of the reasons why I didn't support this year's budget bill, because I felt that, there were very critical services that were not adequately funded. And we all received a memo from your office about the impact of Bill 282-35, and that it would significantly, it would cause significant operational shortfalls within your agency, primarily in the following essential services: discontinuing adult daycare services, discontinuing case management services, in-home services, senior care services, transportation services, home delivery, weekend meal services, 24-hour emergency protective services shelter, legal assistance services, foster care payments, Ali shelter, Guma San Jose services. And so, it's not enough for our hearts to go out to you every single time we see you're in need. And one of the reasons why, I'm glad that this bill was introduced and we're having this discussion today. But I just wanted to be very clear about kind of, if you're able to provide us some sort of priority listing of what's the most urgent thing that you're going to attempt to cover. I know it probably won't cover the entire 14 million now, but if you could give us an idea of what your maybe top 3 priorities are to address first, and then whatever might be extra, you can also address those additional things, if you're able to communicate that to the body, Mr. Director.
We can do that, Madam Senator, we can do that, most definitely. Top 3, we can work on that and submit it to the body.
Suzos Masi. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Senator Clinton, do you have any, none? Senator Therese Turley, do you have any questions, ma'am?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This bill,
I feel like we've gone around in circles. It really takes us around in circles, pretending to appropriate $11 million to public health for operations, when really, I think we're going to give them at best around 1.832 million new money from the Healthy Futures Fund, which I completely support. Whatever money we can find, let's give it to public health, because we knew, you know, when we were in our budget deliberations, they were very contentious because of public health. As the former, senator spoke about, the budget bill as reported out by the Committee on Appropriations already reflected like a $14 million cut from FY20 operations. So we tried consistently throughout the budget deliberations to try to find any money that we could to put towards public health. And sometimes my colleagues were successful, but for the most part we weren't, right? We still came out short. However, what we did do was make sure that Medicaid was taken care of. The potential to access $129 million in Medicaid was our top priority, even above operations, I would say, because OFB consistently assured us that all personnel were taken care of in the operations budget. So we then proceeded to, prioritize Medicaid. So what we did was, we confirmed that there was that $6 million from FY18, and I want to thank Ms. Archangel, who's been, in charge of Medicaid for many, many years at Public Health, and she was very much the leader in all of this. And she pointed out to us, because we asked her, what about lapses? Do you have enough in lapses to cover Medicaid? So she outlined it for us that there was $6 million from the FY 2018 Healthy Futures Fund balance that was appropriated during the FY20 budget, Public Law 35-636. That was appropriated. So the $6 million from the FY18 Healthy Future Funds audited balance was appropriated during fiscal year, or for fiscal year 20. We, in the FY21, carried that forward very specifically. Also in the FY20 budget, as Ms. Archangel testified here today, in FY20, they had also appropriated $3.668 million from Healthy Futures Fund, an additional $3.668 million. We also carried that forward in the FY21 budget. So a total of $9.668 million of the Healthy Futures funds that we're trying to appropriate again today were already carried forward in the FY21 budget, Public Law 35-99. And specifically, and I'll just point it out for the record, those are sections 9 of the public health budget and section 19 of the public health budget. And we were assured at that time that those amounts, together with any Medicaid, we're talking only Medicaid now, lapses from FY20, would bring them very close to accessing the full $129 million in federal, for federal funds that were available from Medicaid, to making our match for those funds. I think they estimated, all right, well, so when we had the public hearing on this bill, we again talked about that. We clarified, and I'm not sure whether BBMR was there. I know they weren't there when we were doing our budget deliberations on public health, because that was what we were talking about, was lapses and how we were going to make this match for Medicaid. And we again talked about whether the 11.5 that we, are
as I said, pretending to appropriate in this bill was actually already included in our estimates on in our FY21 budget. And Tess at that time, or Ms. Archangel, had said, yes, she confirmed during the public hearing that, the 11.5 that they're pointing to actually includes the 6 million from the FY18 fund balance and the 3.668 appropriation from FY20. All right, so that's one issue. It's like, but to carry forward the 1.8, to appropriate the 1.832 or whatever else is left in HFF, I have no objection. So I'm all for that. Give it to public health, yes. Make them meet operational mandates. What I don't want to do is transfer it from Medicaid to operations, because we were very clear to set Medicaid up. I think that really we should not allow it to be transferred now from Medicaid reservations or appropriations to operations instead, because we said at the time, and we say it again, we're still facing at least 6,000 lost jobs. That's according to the most recent, chamber presentation. Gary Hiles, Department of Labor, said
Senator
that.
Therese,
Yes.
do you have a question? Otherwise, your 5 minutes is up.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Well,
so we can move along, and then you can come back again and you can continue making your statements if you want.
well, I'm just trying to make it clear, Mr. Chair, the questions are all, around this same issue, because it's very confusing, and it's actually, was not clear. So, I want to make an amendment, I guess, to the bill, Mr. Chair, and should I do it at this point, or I'll wait for the next round then? Okay.
All right, thank you. Senator Kelly, do you have a question, ma'am?
Again, Saina Maasi, Mr. Chair. So, of course, with everyone else, we're looking everywhere we can for funding, and I agree that just different discussions have been very circuitous and very hard to untangle. And I'm concerned about some of the language here. So the language seems very similar to the 10 million that we tried to have go towards the capital improvements at GMH that was not realized. So I'm concerned that if we're using that same language, it wasn't realized in the past, if this is the best language, and will it get the end result? The other concern is we spent months creating balance and parity for our agencies, and if we're taking every last dime from them that they haven't expended, then there may be all kinds of unintended consequences. We've heard that there are all kinds of reasons why it's harder for them to spend their money right now. I mean, this is in a large part why they were so grateful that we put the lapses forward and so forth, is because they hadn't been able to spend money, and yet they were short attorneys, they were short staff because they couldn't hire them and they couldn't conduct the interviews, and it just went on and on. And I also worry about it supplanting other appropriations, because the language, it doesn't create any priorities or say what is first or not. So if I could ask Lester Carlson, how the language in here, if there is other similar language for other things, how they balance this out. Does it need that language of prioritization, that first and foremost it goes here? Or, yeah, because we want it to meet its end, but if the language is not correct and it's not been realized in the past, then there may be a need to change the language. So is there language that he recommends, or how is it prioritized with the language that it is written in now?
What is your
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Lester.
Yeah, I'll draw your attention to page 2, section 2. There's a section 9 that's being referenced here, and there is a requirement for the Director of Public Health to submit a report to the Speaker using a first in, first out basis for the expenditure of funds. So there are some safeguards here, and I would like to just make a comment. When an audit comes out and it says that we have a fund balance, Healthy Future Funds is primarily from alcohol and cigarette sales. That's, to me, a much more secure funding source than a anticipated projection of collections, because we might look at BPT at X, but we may hit it, we may not hit it. When an audit says that a special fund has a fund balance, I'm very, very quick to be able to gravitate to what the audit says, because it spends like cash. So there are a couple of things here to answer your question, Senator. Inherent in the current budget for public health, that has the prioritization that I think you're looking for, and that also that Senator Lee asked the public health director to provide.
Well, I appreciate the information, of course, and like I said, we want to safeguard so that this actually meets its intent. So I understand the Healthy Futures Fund monies. That does sound more secure, but with the general fund, can you differentiate between the language here and the language in which it was not realized for the 10 million for the hospital?
Yeah, there's a deficit that until it's resolved, the position of the governor is that we may have ended a particular fiscal year with more revenues than what was appropriated. It is her decision to pay down our deficit and not to utilize any revenues received in excess of those budgeted for purposes, and I'm talking specifically about general fund revenues. The deficit is a general fund deficit. The Healthy Future Fund, you can tell on page 2 of the bill, we actually struck out special funds and underlined Healthy Future Fund so that people would understand we're talking about specifically about the general fund and the Healthy Futures Fund in the revision to Section 9 contained in Section 2 of this bill. So there are some distinct differences, Senator. The monies appropriated for the hospital CIP projects were general fund monies collected in excess of those that were appropriated. This one here is an audited number from a special fund. And if you will recall, we report these funds to you separately. The general fund comes in the CRER, and the Healthy Future Fund and everything else comes in a special fund report.
So because we do still have a sizable deficit, is your prediction then that the general fund portion here may end up being $0 being appropriated from it? And if so, should we leave this language in, or should we just focus in on the Healthy Futures Fund?
Essentially, what this does, it protects the amount that the legislature appropriated in this fiscal year to public health. And if there are unexpended balances from the appropriations in both the general fund and the Healthy Future Fund in this revision here, then basically there's that protection that public health will be able to access these funds moving forward if they run into a situation where some of our matches are waived and we don't need the local fund match, but there are other, and I think St. Augustine can elaborate probably more eloquently on many other needs within the department that are outside of the MIP and the Medicaid program.
So I don't believe that really answered, because we have a sizable deficit with the general fund, does that mean then that $0 potentially from the general fund unexpected balance is going to go towards DPHSS anyway?
That's how it's written. Whether or not that is different or the same as the hospital, I think you have a point. There might be a difference of opinion, but that's what the language says in the bill. And you're asking me what it is, how that may or may not be applied towards the GMH situation. And taking a look at it, you're probably right. If there is a general fund balance, it probably won't move forward because of the deficit. So we could be, at least consistent in that application, general fund appropriation.
And in your opinion, because it is, or assessment, because it is, according to the agencies, harder to carry out certain things and spend certain money at this time, do you think there needs to be any safeguard for these agencies, or that it endangers any agency in their ability to carry out their needs? As I was mentioning with the Attorney General's office, they hadn't been able to carry out interviews, and then they're very short-staffed, and then they're under fire for not meeting deadlines and things like this. And so if the money is taken out from them because they couldn't expend it, and we don't know what the fiscal year amount is for the year beyond that, I just worry about not having the legislature be part of this decision if it's all 100% going in one direction without any stepping in to balance it out at all.
That'll be your last question, Senator Kelly. Senator Lester, if you can answer that, if possible.
Yes, I understand, Senator, where you're looking at potentially other needs within the government of Guam, and how maybe some of those other needs could be met. Unfortunately, this bill here is directed specifically at public health, as written and as we are discussing it right now. There's no carve out for anybody else, and the admittedly very vast needs of areas outside of public health and public safety. I agree with you, ma'am.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. Madam Speaker, do you have any questions, ma'am, to the panelists?
No, I have a comment, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
I'd like to rise to a point of personal privilege. This is not about going round and round in circles. For me personally, it's about providing a solution to the director and to Department of Public Health and Social Services. When the director said that there was a problem after the budget bill and had major concerns, this was a solution and an answer based on what the possibilities are to help out. This is about our Manumco. This is about making sure that we provide for the services to our seniors, our neglected children, our abused children, our abused women, about providing foster care, providing for our homeless shelter. And this is making sure that we look at all the stones that are out there and leave no stone unturned. And when we, as a committee, as a policy team, looked to see where we could do, Mr. Chair, we took that opportunity. And yes, we continue to follow through and work closely with you and work closely with the administration to see what we can. But Department of Public Health has stated If the good director of public health thinks that as a matter of fact, let me even turn that around. If the chair of health thinks that this is not needed, I'm going to ask the director of public health, send me a letter to rescind that this is not necessary. Let me ask Art that. Send me a letter. Because right now, I want to say, if this is not needed, send me a letter, rescind it, and I can go on my merry way. But I want to make sure, Mr. Chair, that it is noted to the people of Guam that when I realized and I voted no, not because I just want to vote no on a budget and look at conservative measures and all that, I needed to make sure that people were protected. And that's the way I was raised. And if I can find money from any government area that had not been utilized, and literally hard cash because it was an audited number that came to me, I'm going to use it. And I'm going to ask you again that I hope my chair, my colleagues share the same concept. I plead it with you, Mr. Chair, because the value of this bill is important. I'll save the rest of my comments for closing, Mr. Chair, because I think that it's important that whatever is available, whatever we can do, however we can help assist for the programs that were noted, then I'm going to continue to do that and stand up and fight for our community, fight for our children, fight for our manamco, fight for the foster care, fight for the homeless shelter. I'm going to continue to do that.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senator Therese, you have a point of
Personal privilege,
preference?
Mr.
Okay, please.
Chair. Sure. I just want to state for the record that there was a long defense about, who we want to take care of, and I don't object to that. I said, if there is actual money here, I don't object to it. And everybody wants to take care of all of those operational needs that public health has. We repeated that through the budget. When my amendments were shot down, Mr. Chair, to give them more money from different sources, they were shot down. So don't anybody tell me that, I care for the children more than you. You know what? That is just not going to get us anywhere today. Today, we need to focus on, is this real money? Is it taking it away from Medicaid versus operations versus what? And I just like to get to the facts and stick to that, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Senator Will, we are on our second round. Do you have any questions, sir?
Mr. Chairman, I have a statement and an action. First of all, I want to publicly state for the record that I stand in support of the measure, but also in recognition of fair and open debate and at the request of the minority whip, I hereby yield the balance of my time to the minority leader. Thank you.
You surrender your time to who?
That would be my colleague, Senator Tello Taitui, the minority leader.
All right, just want to make sure it's not, I heard whip and then the minority leader. All right. Senator Jim, do you have any questions or are you planning on giving up your time?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question for OFB. Mr. Guerrero, you heard the discussion about our budget for FY21 and how involved we were on that and looking for any funds that were to be excess and projected those monies to go into especially Department of Public Health. Can you tell us, remind us all of all that hard work we did for the FY21 budget and where some of those monies were coming from and where we were projected and where they were to go? If you can just kindly summarize that. And then the second part of the question is, if this bill does pass, how would that affect our FY21 budget? Mr. Guerrero, please. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. I'll do my best to try to summarize and recall basically what transpired in the budget process. the bottom line is, as everybody knows and knew at the time, that all revenue sources were basically taking a beating, was short. And whatever we were going to appropriate going forth in the budget bill was based on balances we thought would materialize and would be somewhat achievable by the end of the fiscal year. Now, bear in mind, when we did the allocation, we took all fund sources into account, public health being one of the larger agencies that basically consumes a lot of the appropriations in the budget bill, was also given a very careful overview on what we could reasonably provide and appropriate to the agencies to cover basically their operational needs. I believe one of the biggest items that was on the table was basically the match for Medicaid. And in the end, although we realized that the request was roughly about 20 million for the local match, we ended up giving them approximately, I believe, 13.6, somewhere around that level, which was still maybe about 6-7 million short to their $20 million request. It is also my understanding that there were some available appropriations that were appropriated to the agencies or to the agency that was not utilized at the time. And we anticipate and we hope that this would at least help support the program's operational need going forward. Again, everything was based was kind of like on a time basis. When the bill was submitted, when the budget was approved, even as we see today, we're looking at the status of all these funds, and it's not looking as rosy as we all anticipated it would. So, that being said, what Senator Talahi mentioned earlier is absolutely true. We went through that whole 9 yards of going back and forth and trying to decide what would be best for the agencies, what fund sources would be available, and what we can actually come up with a reasonable appropriation level from these fund sources. And at the end of the day, what we appropriated to public health for all of its divisions was basically the amounts that are reflected in 3599, which is the Budget Act.
Mr. Guerrero, then on the second part of the question, if this bill does move forward and passes, how would that affect our FY21 budget? Are you saying it won't or it will?
It will, in a sense, only because this additional money, not additional money, but these funds would definitely help support to meet the local match requirement of Medicaid specifically. In my conversation with Tess Archangel back, I believe, on August 10th, we did have a conversation about what monies were available to public health at the time, what the requirements were at the time moving forward, and I don't think those requirements have changed. Tessie and I have been in communication since then. We talk all the time, and I believe that she is right, that if the local match for Medicaid for 2021 is roughly 20 million, then what has been appropriated in 3599 with the 13.6 million, I believe, plus the available balance of supposedly the 6 million and the 3.6 would be more than enough to meet the local match for Medicaid for 2021. That is my understanding.
Thank you, Mr. Guerrero. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Senator Tello.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Steve, so what you're saying is that, okay, well, let's go back, Steve. When you were doing the, working on the FY21 budget, did you see the 6 million and the 3.66 million totaling 9.66 million from 2020 And if so, was that applied to the 2021 budget, whether through an appropriation or allow the use of unexpended funds from prior year obligations or prior year to carry over? So the simplified is, did you see that 9.66 million?
Senator, at the time the budget was prepared, we basically did not know of this $9.6 million that was still owed to public health for Medicaid. We did not know that. Okay. But since then, in our conversation, we have found out, and it was revealed to us, that these monies are still outstanding and owed to public health. For whatever reason, they're not given that money. I can't explain that. But those funds will definitely help the program in 2021 if provided to them.
Thank you, Steve. And that's my point, Mr. Chair. This funding that we're talking about, thinking it's new money that we found it somewhere under the sky, it's not true. That's why it's just so confusing for me to try and understand how can we appropriate money that's already been appropriated, that was not provided to the agency. And another question is, how come the agency did not use this money? They received $6 million in 1 year, and then they received $3.66 million in another year, but never utilized it. Why didn't public health go after this money? It just wasn't given to them? I mean, who was holding the purse strings at the time? Was it BBMR did not appropriate that money to them? So the point is, we're sitting here talking about all this additional funding to give to public health when it was already given to them. And now we're making it look like, oh, we're going to help the children, we're going to help this, we're going to help that. And no, that's wrong, it's disingenuous. The reality here is excess revenue that was not realized in the Healthy Futures Fund. There was some money that came in that we did not anticipate. And we talked about helping Medicaid because we all know the more money we put in Medicaid, the more money we get back. And why? Because of the individuals who are losing their jobs because of this pandemic that are out of it, health insurance or any assistance. That's where the money can go and be stretched out longer. Our dollar is going to turn into $10 or $70 for an individual if we go to Medicaid. Now, the director, during the public hearing, I asked the director, do you have the discretion whether to move money around from one program to another program? And they said yes. Now, every agency, mostly every agency, has been cut. And we're seeing it to this day through the CRER report that's coming out. The funding is not coming in, and everybody has to do their part and take a cut. That's the reality of it. But if you were given $1 and you had an opportunity to take that dollar and turn it into $70, I think that's the best route to go, considering again, the over 6,000 individuals who lost their jobs and have no insurance, health insurance. That's what we're here today. I have no problem with this bill, with the right amendments in to reflect the reality of it. What I don't understand is how come at this juncture, after the budget bill was passed, that this came to light. Not even OFB was told about this. Again, BBMR was not there during the public hearing, which they should have been there to explain the situation. I think the bill would have come out totally different to reflect the reality of this. So nobody here in this legislature is not wanting to help public health. We are doing everything we can to help public health, not just one person in this body, but everybody. But what we don't want to do is to make, accusations that this is new money. It's not. It's money that's been already appropriated. There is a question I have for, this is for Public Health and Social Services. For FY 2020, did the Department of Public Health and Social Services receive its full appropriation for the general fund and special revenue sources? Were lapses realized? If so, and how much? Public Health.
Tom, you have the spreadsheet there that you had worked on and you had reconciled. Could you please share that?
I'm sorry, Arthur, did you say something again? Can you repeat, please?
Yes, Madam Senator, yes, my ASL has the spreadsheet.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Tidigley, ASL Tidigley?
That was a part of the package that you took.
So, I'm sorry. So we had transmitted information, and the information we received in terms of the FY20 documentation is we had a little over 7 million subtotal for FY 2020. But there was an overrun on MIP of about 3.7. So we have our total lapses right now for FY 2020 at 3.3, or $3,377,646.46. And that's what we have at this time, Senator Tidigley.
Okay, thank you, Arthur, for that. Mr. Director.
Yes, Senator, no problem.
For the first quarter, well, we're actually not in the first quarter for FY 2021, but has there been any challenges in the receipt of budget allocations so far since the budget has been passed? I guess this is the first quarter, so in the first quarter of FY 2020, has there been any challenges in the receipt of budget allocations? Has it been necessary for the governor to transfer funds from other sources in order to cover the agency? This is for Public Health.
Tommy, if you could provide a response, please.
Yeah. We've been able to access the money, and most recently, as early as like a couple of weeks ago, access was made available to our FY20 balances. So yes, and no, the governor has not had to make no transfers that I'm aware of.
Okay, so Art, have you requested, since you were talking about the list of all those programs, have you reached out to the governor to ask for any additional funding through her transfer authority?
At this time, Senator, no, actually I have not. What we are doing is next week on the 17th, we're having a department fiscal review, and that'll give us a gauge as to where we are financially, the positions that have not been recruited, any potential lapses, and then we can do reprogramming as we are able to. And so that's what we're doing. We have a full department review of our fiscal from each division, and that's what we'll have a better gauge on Thursday of next week, Senator.
I remember during Arthur, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Senator. Well, no, sorry. And then at that point, Senator, we will update this impact list, and would include the November 19 update that we now have 3.3 from the FY 2020 that we would also factor into our shortfall.
Okay, because during the public hearing, there was a question regarding your lapses and doing your own audit, in-house audit, but you didn't have any of those numbers available at the time. Do you have those numbers now based on the question that was asked to you during the public hearing?
Our ASO has compiled a list, and we have it based on different account numbers, Senator, and we can transmit a copy of the compilation to the body. Oh.
Can he just tell us what those numbers are?
This is kind of similar to what I was reading earlier. The general fund subtotal is 4,055,028.21. HPLO, Guam Board Medical Examiners, we have 297, 242.54. Environmental Health Fund has $346,700. HFF, Healthy Futures Fund, has $2,246,347.43. DPHSS Sanitary Inspection Revolving Fund has $3,482.45. OVS, Office of Vital Statistics, is $145,484.20. A subtotal of $7,094,284.83. We do have an overrun on MIP of $3,716,638.37. Providing our current FY 2020 lapses at $3,377,646.46.
Thank you, Arthur. I greatly appreciate it. And whatever time I have left, I yield it to Senator Therese Chalahi. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Muñoz, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. So just a really quick question. So in the first round, Mr. Carlson from BBMR said that we won't know about the FY 2020 until the audit is completed. So I guess the question would just be for Mr. Byrne from DOA. Does he know when the audit will be completed for the FY 2020?
Senator, we're working on it as fast as we can now. We only closed the books on November 30th, so we're working on it now. We're working with the OPA to try and get the numbers out, at least for the general fund by the end of March, so that the whole audit can be released in April. But this is a lot of work, and it obviously won't be available till next year.
Okay, thank you very much for the information. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Pito Chalahi.
We talk about, moving the money from 2018 to 2019 up to appropriated for the 2021. So for sure we have money for public health, but the thing is, why do we have to wait for the audit when we know that there's money that has been transferred over to the 2021? And that's an issue for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Chalahi. Senator Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess the question I want to reiterate is from the Department of Public Health. This question goes to them. Why didn't you release that information to OFB? Why is it just coming to light now? So for Director San Agustin.
May I ask,
Can I do a point of information, Mr. Chair, if may, please?
Sure.
On
Well,
a point
maybe
of
if we could
information.
have them answer the question first, and then I'll go to you for point of information.
I just want to say, based on the question on the point of information, Mr. Chair, that I want to remind the body that this was the post-audit release. You couldn't have known that the money was there until after the audit is done, so I just wanted to remind the body that.
Thank you.
Can I get a
Senator
response?
Perez, did you want to ask the question again?
Yes. So if I can get a response from the Department of Public Health. So, it was originally testified that it was known that there was $6 million that was not utilized from 2018, and which was then passed on to 2019 and 2020. Why was that information not provided to OFB in time for the 2021 budget talks?
Senator, just to be clear, you're asking OFB as an Office of Finance and Budget, as in?
I'm sorry,
would that
Director
be-
San Agustin, it's hard to hear if you can speak closer to
Oh,
the mic.
I'm sorry. Well, Senator, I was just wondering, is your question based on OFB, as in the Office of Senator Chair San Agustin? Is that?
Yeah, so it's come to light that this information was not provided prior to the budget talks, and I'm just the question is, why was it not provided to OFB when it was known that in previous audits there was a carryover? Why was this not brought to
I'm
light?
not, I can't speak to any prior audits, but during budget talks, and one of the things we've asked at the budget hearing, during the budget hearing process, is for us to be able to carry over any lapses. And this is one of the items that was put in the proposed budget. And that's what I recall. I don't know if Tess or Tommy have any other recall, but I believe it was in our proposed budget in terms of the Budget Act. Tess or Tom?
Mr. Chair, point of inquiry. I really didn't understand what the director said. The question was offered to Art. They knew
Yes.
that
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Sorry. Okay, Senator, that 6 million was appropriated in 2020.
Right.
It's not in 2018 or it's not in 2019. It was appropriated in Budget Law 2020. So the audit is not finished yet.
And then we had asked that any lapses during the budget hearing for any funding that's authorized would be carried over to the next fiscal year, or FY21. That's what we had asked during the budget hearing process.
Okay, so if I can have a follow-up question to OFB. So, Steve, so are you in the same, do you have the same understanding that this 6 million was actually reported to you? Because I'm hearing two different things right now.
Senator, the first time I was aware about the 6 million is when we were given the bill to do the fiscal note. And through our fact finding is we were told that the 6 million was still was an appropriation made against 2018 Healthy Future Fund balance to be used in 2020, and that if this money was available, it would help out the department meet its local match in 2021.
Okay, so you're saying
that
now,
is my understanding.
Okay, so thanks, Steve. So you're saying that it is now, it was always incorporated into this budget bill, the 2021 budget bill? Is that what you're saying now?
Are you talking about the 6 million in the bill?
Yes.
I won't say it's part of the 2021 budget, but when we were made aware of this money, of the 6 million being available to public health, which was not used in 2020, and that if these monies are available in 2021, it will definitely help public health in 2021. But it was not factored in the FY21 budget. Like I said, this 6 million came up after the budget bill was approved and passed.
Okay, thank you. So a question for Steve from OFB. So, you know, when we create these budgets, we kind of, we understand that these are predictions. And so, you know, how's the Healthy Future Fund tracking now? I know when we initially had the talks, the budget talks, they seem to be overperforming, but I think from the latest report, it's underperforming. So what is your, sorry, if you can confirm that first of all, and yeah, what is your thought about appropriating any of these funds, the amounts that are overperforming?
Yes, just a reminder. Remember, when we appropriate money in any fiscal year budget, it's paid against the projected revenues to be collected in that fiscal year. We go a little bit beyond by supplementing these budgets by giving the authorizations, such as carryovers, such as continuing accounts for the departments to use to help them in operational needs in the fiscal year. Now, in terms of the Healthy Future Fund, I believe based on the CRER report as of September 30th, the Healthy Future Fund is showing a negative balance of 1.58 million. As of October FY21, the first month of the fiscal year, it is tracking $616,000 below projection. So that tells you that the Healthy Future Fund is basically underperforming for the last 3 months of, well, at least starting from August, September, and October. Prior to that, I believe in January, June, when we did the fiscal note on the bill, I believe there was a surplus. It was actually a little above, about 416,000 at the time we did the fiscal note. But we also did indicate in the fiscal note that, you know, there are several couple of months remaining in the fiscal year, based on what has been happening with all the other special funds. And at the time, Healthy Future Fund of the 6 major revenue funds was the only one that was actually performing above. Unfortunately, I believe came August, it actually went below, I believe, about 414,000 short, starting August, and ended up with 1.584 million shortfall for the fiscal year.
Okay, thank you, Steve. So I guess a follow-up question, because of, based on that information, is there any harm that we might be over-appropriating money that doesn't exist with this bill?
Working with and we're talking about Medicaid now. You know, working closely with Tess Archangel, we have determined that should the 6 million plus the 3.6 million plus the 13 million that's appropriated in the FY21 budget for Medicaid, we believe that that would be sufficient to meet the local match for Medicaid for FY21. So if the local match for FY21, based on based on information that was provided earlier, that the amount would have been 20 million, then of course, if you add those sums up, we would probably be in excess of about 3 million local match.
Okay, thanks, Steve. So in the bill, it states that there is a cap, that no more, notwithstanding any other provision, the sum of no more than $2,772,409 is going to go towards matching. So is that going to actually limit the amount of matching funds for Medicaid? I guess this question can go towards DPHSS, Director San Agustin.
Senator, if you're all right, we can have our Medicaid chief talk about that.
Excuse me, Director, if you can just speak into the mic, it's kind of hard to hear.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that, Senator. Yes, Tess oversees the Medicaid. I'll go ahead and have her discuss this a bit further. Tess, thank you.
I'm sorry, Senator, because I don't have a copy of the bill, so I don't know what changes there is. So as far as I know, if those funding will be given to us, the 6 million and the 3.6 million, that's more than enough. And whatever is remaining on that particular appropriation, I would suggest for public health to be able to use it in any other operations of public health.
Sorry, can you repeat that again? And if you can get closer to the mic, it was kind of muffled.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is that that 9.6 million is more than enough to fund the 129 million of Medicaid. So I would suggest that whatever lapse funding Medicaid will have, to allow the Department of Public Health to utilize it for other operations, not to mention whatever amount that is. So let the Medicaid utilize whatever it's going to utilize, and I'm pretty sure there are lapse funding with that 9.6 million. I would suggest to allow our director to utilize it for other operations.
3 million more than what they need right now.
Not to state 4 million, 3 million, to use it, operate whatsoever, but just make it open for the Department of Public Health to utilize whatever lapse funding, whether it's 5 million, 6 million lapse funding that we're going to have, or 3 million.
Okay, thank you. So another question is the 100% matching. When is the expiration of that going to take place?
There's no 100% matching now. That was in 2019. That's the reason why we were able to retroclaim 13 million, which we utilized in 2020. And the senators were asking earlier, why was it not utilized? Why was the Healthy Futures Fund not utilized? It's because of the 13 million retroclaiming in 2019. And in budget law FY 2020, whatever lapse funding we have, it was carried over. So that 13 million was utilized. That's why there's free money, there are lapse funding in FY 2020.
Okay, thank you for the responses. I would like to put in the extra time for Senator Talahi.
Senator Torres?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just following the discussion and listening to everything, but I keep going back to the fiscal note, and I think I'm satisfied with what the intent of the bill is. You know, what monies are available in the fund balance of the Healthy Futures Fund from 2019. You know, how 2018 funds were appropriated in 2019, and I think if a good way to wrap around, I think to wrap our hands around it again, is to look at the fiscal note, because it is a little confusing about why monies weren't expended, how they were reappropriated, and what exactly we're trying to do. But I think, you know, in principle, I'm content with the fact that there is a fund balance from an audit that reflects a certain amount in 2019. And I'm also satisfied with the fact that Department of Public Health and Social Services does not have sufficient monies to carry out many of its programs, and that this is a source of funding that shortage to Department of Public Health and Social Services. So on that very principle of what the basic intent of this bill is I stand in support of it, and I believe that it's a valid fund to use, that it is in fact available, and that in the fiscal note that was prepared by Mr. Lester Carlson, that it spells out exactly what this bill does and how the funds are utilized. So I just want to state that I keep referring back to it, and I think that it's a good point of reference so that we don't lose sight of exactly what the good intentions of Bill 400 are to a critical agency that is short on funds for critical services to our community. That's really, for me, just the end of story. So I stand in support of Bill 435. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Senator San Agustin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question will be addressed to OFB, my director, Steve Guerrero. But first, I want to make a very clear statement in support of both the bill and the Oversight Chair in Health, and to all my colleagues. Number one, every one of us here, when we find a source of funding, we go for it and we try to get it to whatever agency needs it. Nobody here can deny that. Number two, when the audit came out, and the Speaker of OFB can attest to this, when the audit came out and Bill 400 came out, I was in shock. We're like, wow, $11 million. We just came through a budget, exactly what the Oversight Chair of Public Health says. And everyone has called me and said, where else is there money? I said, wait a minute. Sat down with OB, the director, and we said, how can 11 million exist? Little to know, my colleagues. We found out that when an audit is done, they take into account what is found in the account, not minusing what has been appropriated. what should have been deducted from that account to say that it's already earmarked to an agency that everybody here all agreed to. That we will allow the agency that has any funds that's not been used be carried over for the next year. So on that note, Steve, if you can please explain that, because you and I had a conversation about it, so that all the colleagues and the people of Guam can understand that it's about helping the people. Period. And whatever money exists, so be it. And that the audit should have been cleared more of exactly when it says it's got surplus, did they minus all appropriation? That's the key. Because when they don't, we're all believing there's money from the audit when there's really nothing or there's very little. And that's why when my office got involved in OFB, we sent a different note and we said we could support this bill because whatever is not yet identified will go to public health, to help public health. Steve, maybe you can comment more on that one. Thank you.
I will try my best, Senator. My understanding on the audit is that, Senator, you are correct. Whatever basically is appropriated and or in the system is normally and should be picked up in the audit. What makes a big difference, I believe, in the balance is that if these appropriations are not expended, these appropriations are then, these balances are then listed as available balances and will contribute to the, you can say, everybody likes to use the word surplus balance. And that could be the case in the Healthy Future Fund, and I'm sure that pretty much is the situation with the Healthy Future Fund. The $6 million could have been picked up in the audit, but it was not expended, and therefore it is showing as a surplus or available monies in the Healthy Future Fund.
But Steve, being that is identified and not picked up, public health, when we approved the budget to give them the carryover, that $6 million should have been reduced from the audit so that it doesn't show that it's so-called surplus.
Expenditures, not appropriations.
Yes, Senator, but please remember, please remind yourself it's revenues versus expenditures in the audit. And you're right. If it is captured as an appropriation in the audit, that's great. But if it's not expended, then maybe Mr. Burns, you can help me out here and see what you can do to. So my understanding is that if it's not expended in the audit, it's not picked up as an expenditure in the audit, then it's going to show as an available balance in the fund. But maybe Mr. Burns, you can help out.
Yes, Senator, if I may. The Healthy Future Fund is a special fund, right? So a balance will carry forward from one year to the next if the fund is not expended. Just for everybody's information, the balance at the beginning of 19 was just under 7 million. So it wasn't like it just suddenly appeared. There was already a healthy balance in the fund at the beginning of fiscal 19. The money was not expended, as Ms. Archangel quite rightly said, because we didn't need to spend it because there was federal money made available at 100% right up to the end of fiscal 19. And so the money was simply not needed for that purpose. And that's the purpose of having an audit, so that at the end of the year, you can see indeed what the balance of the fund is. In this particular case, if the bill passes and all the money gets used, then effectively Healthy Futures Fund will have a very small balance left, and the matter will not recur. So, but it isn't accounting practice to reduce a fund balance by an appropriation. At the end, or the GASB rules require appropriations to be reversed out at the end of the year, and that's one of the things we're doing now as we complete the audit. I hope, Mr. Guerra, that helps to explain some of what you were talking about.
All right, thank you. Senator Clint, do you have any questions to the panel? No. Senator Therese, do you have any question, ma'am?
Yes, so I just wanted to clarify. So, Ms. Archangel, Medicaid Chief, in Section 9 of the current budget law for FY21, it says that the unexpended balance of appropriations from general fund and special funds to public health for MIP and Medicaid in fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 21 shall not revert. So when we were accounting for this in the budget, you had calculated at least 6 million in lapses from the FY18 audit balance and 3.68 million, another appropriation made in FY20 that was not expended. Isn't that right? And so that's where you get that number, the 9.668 that you said is adequate for Medicaid, together with its other FY20 lapses to meet the Medicaid match for FY21. Right? You were counting
Yes,
on the
Senator.
6 million. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes,
So-
Senator.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you. So, colleagues, if you point at, if you look at section 4 of the bill, section 4 of the bill takes that appropriation to Medicaid, the previous appropriation to Medicaid that we were counting as lapses to still go to Medicaid, and removes it, okay? So it would delete that, and that's my contention with the bill. Deleting that allows the money instead to go to general operations of public health and leaves us short for our Medicaid match, in fact. I mean, of course, we could all, pardon.
Senator Therese, are you referring to page 3, section 4?
Yes,
It's deleted
correct.
already?
Yeah, so no, this bill is striking it out, meaning
Yes.
it's deleting it from a prior law,
Oh.
Public Law 3536.
Okay.
Right? So I don't want that to be deleted from Public Law 3536. That's an FY20 budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need that as a lapse from FY20 to meet our Medicaid match,
Okay.
right?
I just
So
want to
that's
make
what
sure
we
it's
planned,
understood.
yeah. During the FY21 budget, we counted it, that would be 6 million plus the 3. You know, we could make our Medicaid match this way, right? And that's why we felt good about meeting the Medicaid match. And knowing we're still short on operations, so that we all agree on. But I just think we should not, redesignate it for operations right now. The reason it wasn't spent by public health, as Ms. Archangel clarified, wasn't because they did anything wrong. It was because Medicaid changed during that year, and they allowed us not to have to use that money, right, for matching. And that's all. However, she's calculating that we need it, and we might even need it, to cover the claims that have been made. She said 164, which is way in excess. This year's claims are way in excess of what we've accounted for, which is only 129, right? So we tried to make a match for that. So, but if we leave it, that lapses available for Medicaid, we are comfortable to meet our Medicaid match, which is what our goal is. We want to get all that federal money from Medicaid as we can. All right, and then if you look again at what we did, okay, so that provision, that carryover is in Section 2 of the bill. Section 2 of the current bill talks about that carryover of the FY20 lapses. And so I have no objection to this. They're changing the word special funds to healthy futures funds. I don't really know whether that takes away any of the other funds that they were counting on, but we know the Healthy Futures was the bulk of it. So I don't really have an objection with this section. This is good. The problem is, yeah, Section 4 kind of takes $6 million out of what we tried to do here in Section 9 of the budget, of our current budget law, okay? And then if you go to, and now we're talking about balance of the Healthy Futures Fund. And if you recall, during our budget deliberations, you know, in Section 19 of the public health section, we included a provision that says, notwithstanding any other provision of law, 85% of the FY20 fund balance of the HFF, Healthy Futures, that was not appropriated in Public Law 35-36, and that's where we very specifically accounted for this $6 million that was already appropriated and the $3 million that was already appropriated, because we had given that to Medicaid and lapses. So in this section, we were very careful not to include the Medicaid money, and we said the balance, 85% will go to public health for operations, for anything. We didn't even specify what they could use it on. They would get the balance, 15% would go to Guam Cancer Trust. And if you remember, right, that was how that ended up. This bill now in Section 3 of the bill,
Senator Therese, we're not going to be talking about the amendments until we get to that, right? Or
right.
Okay.
Okay, so Section 3 of the bill, you know, again, it takes $8 million for operations from the Healthy Futures Fund. And this one says, you know, FY19 audit balance. So really the dispute is, if we take the FY19 audit balance, which, you know, the speaker's correct, the audit balance was not made available to us until we had already pretty much finished the bill. I think right before we voted on it, then the balance, you know, the FY audit became, 19 audit became available. And, but during our FY21 deliberations, we specifically asked OFB, what is the balance, right? What is the balance of the Healthy Futures Fund that we have not appropriated in the rest of our FY21 appropriations? What's the balance? We had different numbers coming in from different sources. That's why we just said, you know, 85% of the fund balance. We didn't put a set amount because we wanted all of it. And yes, we wanted the FY19 balance plus whatever, you know, was available on top of that from FY20. Because, and, you know, so BBMR has told us, oh, we can't be appropriating fund balances, you know, until they're audited. But I just beg to differ because, you know, in my short term here in the legislature, I've seen that done. That we did that for the fund balance from the tax on fuel for roads. It was supposed to go to road repair. So we made sure that the fund balance, whatever it was on that date, was going to go towards road repair. So we have done that. And we've seen them actually honor that. And we were able to make road repairs from that fund balance. The other thing, I mean, of course, the reverse happened when we tried to do it for the hospital. Up to now, even with an FY19 audit, the money's not at the hospital. So I'm just saying, you know, it's a little bit semantics now, whether we're going to say, you know, the audit balance versus the balance, you know, versus, and I think in good faith, you know, an FY20 balance should include, of course, the FY19 audit balance. I mean, isn't that just makes sense? We knew at the time the audit was not done when we made that amendment, right? So I have no objection to using whatever's left in the FY19 balance. Everybody agrees, well, from what I've heard from the testimony today, that that balance is about 1.8 million, maybe a little more, but it's around there. So whatever that balance is, yes, give that to operations. But don't take the 6 and the 3, the 9 million from what already been appropriated to Medicaid. That's all I'm saying. Leave it at Medicaid, take the balance, whatever it is from the Healthy Futures, give it to public health for operations. However, if you do it this way, as pointed out in the bill, we are totally bypassing the 85-15% split. And we're saying, forget that. Everything now goes to public health. That's what this bill does. And I don't think it's necessary. I mean, trust me, I wanted it all to go to public health, but the good author of the amendment to shift it to Cancer Trust Fund made a very good point that we had been undercutting the Cancer Trust Fund's percentage for several years. So I don't know. The other thing is, so it doesn't leave that much new money for public health. I know the time. I think some of the time was yielded to me, but if I could I'm almost done. So there was, we might have about 1.8 from Healthy Futures, which is great. Let's give that to public health for operations. But as we found out, since the budget was passed, and it's been verified at the public hearing, and again verified today, and verified in a previous hearing that we had, they all confirm that when we made an amendment to our budget law for FY21, and we said they could take all the lapses from FY20 and use it for operations, we gave them an additional 3 million, 3.3. So it's not 14, it's not 10, but it's still an additional 3. And if you add the additional 1 from that I think is the balance left in the Healthy Futures that should be appropriated by this bill, they got 4 million to play with. So I just think we have to keep chipping away at it, Mr. Chair, and so we're going to get to the amendments next.
Yes, real soon.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Kelly, do you have any questions to the panel? You're the last.
I'm good. So when I last spoke, it's in support of getting money to DPHSS. And because of that, I questioned the term, the language, the unexpended balance of appropriations, because in the past we have used the same or very similar language and not seen it realized. But we all in this room want money to be realized to DPHSS. So it was very helpful to hear that, on one hand, not so helpful to hear that the general fund monies may not provide any money, but that they are assuring us that there is money in the Healthy Futures Fund and that would be realized. So the other part that I wanted to look at is to understand, because again, we want to make sure that this works. So it says that for the year 2020 and the fiscal year 2021, and so it was previously asked for the fiscal year 2020 that that's probably going to be known about March. So I see how that works for 2021, that it's available in March, it can be made available to DPHSS in March. But if the fiscal year 2021 money is not known until March of 2022, how will that work? How will that work? Can it be something that is done in 2022 that goes back? If Mr. Byrne from DOA could explain that?
Not really absolutely sure what question you're asking, Senator, but for a special fund, there's a difference between the general fund, which is the fund that has to pick up the final liability or asset, or whatever it is. It's the fund of last resort. A special fund is set up when there's a special revenue source, as there is in this case. So if you look in our financial statements, there's a whole section of special funds. They show a number of funds that have surpluses and a number of funds that have deficits. And we're trying to deal with the funds that have deficits. What I think the director of BBMR was saying was that to be safe, we should wait until the end of the audit before we determine whether there is a surplus that can be used and, as you want to say, appropriated to a particular purpose. Because if you try and do it and you find out that the fund balance isn't there, that appropriation will be frustrated. In this case, what we're dealing with here is we have appropriated, or this bill and the budget bill, where if enacted, or if this bill is enacted, it will have appropriated most of the fund balance that's sitting in the books. And really, we can't know any more than that until we get to the end of the audit. And we're making those adjustments now because we have to estimate the revenues that we're going to, in order to arrive at a proper receivable. So, I mean, I don't think it's anything that any other government doesn't have to deal with. Our issue flows from the fact that we have a deficit on the general fund and a probable surplus on this special fund, and we just have to deal with that, struggle with it, and work it out as necessary. I hope that answered your question, Senator.
Let me clarify a few points to make sure I followed everything. So, like I said, if this is going to be released March of, for the fiscal year 2020, and it's released March 21, I understand how that works. That money is going to come in handy in 21, it will be used in 21. Do you see any ability before March of 2022 for that money to be released? And even if it does have to wait till March of 2022, is everything in here sufficient to allow you to release that money in 2022? There's nothing that's going to hinder it or stop it or preclude that?
The only thing that would hinder it would be a significant underrun of revenues during the current year, because you wouldn't then be able to meet current obligations.
Oops. So just to be clear, so when 2022 rolls around, you will be able to release that, even though the fiscal year that we're working on this on is over. You will be able to release it to meet their needs in 2022.
Yes, Senator, but as I said, I don't believe there's going to be a whole lot there because we're using almost all the balance now with this bill.
Okay, so so you're saying that there may not be much there, but as the author of this bill mentioned, you know, not wanting to leave any stone unturned. I mean, whatever may be there, we want to help secure. But thank you for clarifying that. I wanted to be reassured that if there was money found by March of the next year, that it would still be able to be released and used as we're trying to make it available for use.
Yes, Senator, any dollar is useful, and if there is some left after this major appropriation has taken place, it certainly will be there to be used. I mean, again, as Ms. Arcangel said, it's very hard to predict the precise amount of Medicaid that's needed because it's a large number and it depends very much upon the severity and the number of cases that are Medicaid claims. And by and large, we've done pretty well at actually estimating the Medicaid needs.
Mr. Chair, that covers what I wanted to just get some clarification on sa Diyos Masi.
All right, thank you, Senator Kelly. Speaker Tina, do you have any questions on the panelists?
No, I don't, sir.
All right.
Unless you wanted me to close and say thank you to them.
Okay, well, what we're going to do is, my colleagues, we're going to dismiss the panel.
But before,
Then we go to the amendments. After the amendments, you will make your closing.
well,
Okay.
before they leave, I guess, because we're going to dismiss them, right, Mr. Chair?
We're going to discuss the amendments, but the panel has no
Right,
interest.
so I just wanted to take the time to thank them.
Okay, if you
If I
like,
can.
if you choose to, Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to thank Department of Public Health and Social Services, to BBMR, and of course, OFB for answering our colleagues' questions. And I just want to say that I believe in my heart that the audit is clear. There is money available, and we know that when this financial audit was done, it was prepared by the auditors and accountants who swear to uphold the principles of making sure that the standards and the integrity is upheld. And I just want to know that in my heart of hearts, the money is identified as we are in this pandemic. And when the information got to me, I just wanted to give public health and social services, with the support of my colleagues, to the tools to help them fight this invisible war, especially because the information came to us that you know, there was a need for all these programs to be covered, or else you know, that they would have to be canceled. And I know that there are several amendments, but I think it's important to just thank the panel who came today to help answer a lot of the questions and the inquiries that were afforded to them. So thank you, and then I guess we can work on the amendments.
All right, thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, panelists. You are now dismissed. You will not be, Public Health, you won't be called in the rest of the evening. Neither will DOA and BBMR and OAB. You'll be called in tomorrow morning, because after this bill will recess, because there is a hearing at 5 o'clock on bill, continue hearing on 404. All right? So, that being said, we'll now proceed with the amendments. My colleagues, a reminder.
Just, Mr. Chair, just.
One, Madam Speaker, why don't we take a quick recess, at least 5 minutes, so everybody can reset themselves. Thank you. We're on recess at this time.
What amendments?
The Committee of the Whole is back from recess. We will now proceed to the amendments. It is found in your folder, the Share With Me 12.9-20 COTW, Committee of the Whole. If you click on that, go to the bill, the amendments are all listed. We will begin in the order of the amendments that was received. We will start with the amendment introduced by the Speaker. Madam Speaker, if you can please introduce your amendment, and then we can go to the discussion, and we can wrap it up.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, my amendment is simple. It's just to amend the bill to read on the title, an act to make the necessary appropriations to the Department of Public Health and Social Services from the Healthy Futures Fund balance as of fiscal year 2019, reflected in the Government of Guam's basic financial statements to safeguard the public health of the people of Guam by amending Public Law number 35-99. Again, just reflecting what is the intent of the bill. So this would clarify that, and then to allow legal to make any technical corrections if necessary.
All right, thank you. Are there any of my colleagues who would like to speak on the amendment? Is there a title change? I don't see any hands. Are there any objection to the amendment?
No objections.
Senator Teller, you're objecting or what?
I'd like to speak.
Oh,
Mr.
okay,
Chair,
that's what I was
just a
waiting for.
point
Waiting
of
for hands to show me.
information,
Thank
yeah.
you.
So this is the title, correct? Because it says, it doesn't have a line, of course, so it's page 1. So this is the title. And my question is, incorporating fiscal year 2019, reflected in the Government of Guam Basic Financial Statement. In the original bill, it doesn't incorporate 2019. It references the Public Law 35-99. Well, what is the difference? What's changing here that it's a substantial change? Because in the title, it references the FY21 budget, and then now we're turning around in the amendment to incorporate
right.
fiscal year 2019. So just a point of
All
inquiry.
right, so I would ask the author of the amendment if you'd like to yield to that question.
It just reflects, Mr. Chair, where the fund is coming from, and it notes that it's coming from the Healthy Futures Fund's balance.
All right,
And everything
Senator
else
Tello?
is-
No, it's not sufficient enough. I'm asking about the year. The year is substantially different. You're talking a balance of a fiscal year 2019, and the bill talks about the Public Law 35-99, which is is a 2021 budget. There's a substantial difference, sir, and that's my question. You know, what is the big difference here? Are you deciding to not utilize anything in 3599 in future references versus this amendment, which now goes to FY 2019? So
Okay. So
maybe, can I take a short recess? Maybe she can explain, because I just don't understand why the change.
All right, we'll take a quick recess and the two of you can speak. Thank you. Committee of the Whole is back.
Thank
Senator Tello.
Thank you, Mr.
Please.
Chair, for the short recess. Several of my colleagues, too, had that same question with regards to the reference of 2018. And knowing that 35-99 is still incorporated in the title is fine. But I think the confusion was that we were talking about an audit that was done for 2018, 2019. So then it made sense. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to talk to the author of the amendment. I have no objections. Thank you.
Are there any other colleague who would like to speak to it? You raising your hand? Okay. Senator Paris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, if the author can reiterate, because there's a part in the bill that was struck out that refers to 2018. So just a clarification that, should the amendment be made, that technical corrections, to allow legal to make technical corrections to the title.
She did make that statement, Senator Paris.
Okay, Students Masi.
All right, so we're good. Are there anyone else that would like to speak to this? Are there any objection to this amendment? There being none, amendment passes. We move to the next amendment. Next amendment was introduced by Senator Therese Terlai. Let me open it up with you all.
If you could use the one that's labeled page 3 first.
Yes, well, we're going to go in the order you have it.
No, we could do this one first, Mr. Chair. So this one is TMT line 5
to
11, page 3, yes.
Yeah, that's the next one.
Okay.
The first one. All right. Please proceed, Senator. Oh, they're both. Yeah, 511.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this is in regards to section 4 of the bill, page 3, lines 5 through 11. So the bill right now has a strike through of Public Law 35-36, which is the FY20 budget. So it's removing this appropriation from the FY20 budget. So my amendment is to not remove this language from the FY20 budget because Public Health is counting on this $6 million as part of its Medicaid lapses, to meet the match for Medicaid. So, and I wanted to point out, so in the fiscal note, this was acknowledged today during the discussion, by OFB, DOA, BBMR says, as such, the $6 million appropriation from Public Law 3536, noted above, would need to be deducted from the available HFF balance cited in the FY19 Government of Guam Financial Audit. Then he gives another proposal. So I'm suggesting that that's exactly what we do. We remove it from the balance that's going towards, that may go as we, dictate by this bill, and that stays where it was supposed to stay at Medicaid.
Thank you, Senator Therese. Do any of my colleagues would like to speak to the amendment? I see no hands. Senator Torres, I see your hand, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, the point of striking it was to balance the HFF budget, because without striking this language as pointed out by the fiscal note, then it wouldn't be balanced. And so it needed to be adjusted in order for that money to be available. I stand in opposition to this because I believe that it was made clear that it wasn't expended because in that particular year because it was covered 100% by the feds according to tests. And I still believe that to date this money is needed for those critical services and projects and programs for DPHSS. So I rise in opposition to this. I think that this money should stay intact as the bill intended.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Senator Tello.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I thank the author for this amendment because, again, it was reiterated earlier that this funding was already given to to public health for Medicaid. And as I mentioned, at $1 goes $70, that we can put into assisting those individuals, especially the 60,000 individuals who are out of a job, who have also lost any kind of health coverage as well. And I'm pretty sure that the other amendments moving on down will balance this bill to the intent that it was done in the 35-99, the budget bill, FY21, will definitely balance it. So I stand in full support of this amendment and look forward to the additional amendments that assist. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else or my colleagues like to speak on the amendment? Okay. Senator Parrish, you want to speak? Folks, please raise your hand. I'm tall, but I can't see over some of the senators, okay? And if I don't see your hand and I skip you, don't complain. Senator Parrish, please.
I guess a point of inquiry, by striking this out in the original bill or the amended bill, would this decrease the Medicaid matching capacity? I guess this question could be for the author of the bill.
That would be for the author of the amendment then?
The bill.
Because she's the one that offered the amendment. So
okay.
you may want to yield that, or we can take a recess and get a hold of OLB and ask that question. All right? What other questions do you have, Senator Parrish, so that when I get on the phone, I'm not calling back and forth. We do it one time.
I could start with, maybe asking either the author of the bill and the author of the amendment. So by removing this part, will it decrease the ability to fund Medicaid matching?
Okay. We'll do a recess, and I'll make contact. Just need you to restate your question when we're at recess, okay?
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you. We're at recess. My colleagues, we are back from recess. Being that it is now 9 minutes to 5, there is a hearing on a continuation hearing on Bill 404. The Committee of the Whole will recess until tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. Thank you, my colleagues. See you in the morning.